Thanks for your perspective. So what does this mean, really, for both political parties in one of the most heated election cycles yet? We're asking progressive radio host Leslie Marshall and former George W. Bush advisor Brad Blakeman. Good to see you guys.
Thanks.
All right, Leslie, if this nomination process really drags out, who does this help the most? I mean, who is it actually going to galvanize? Voters on both sides?
I have to tell you, I just heard if I can say, Trish, your rant, and I think I'm going to vote for you. I mean, I just loved your rant on that.
You and I don't always agree either, Leslie. So that's saying something. But no,
right.
I think that, you want a full Supreme Court.
Yes, and honestly, I think what you just did is going to echo the sentiment of a lot of voters because, at the end of the day, this is the Supreme Court, and even though you may not have the same ideology, have voted for, or even like the person sitting in the White House, this is what this person is elected to do. At the end of the day, that really affects an individual voter and where they truly feel that their vote counts.
So here's what I got to ask you, though, Leslie.
Republicans could hurt themselves.
Would you be saying exactly that if this was a Republican president that stood to make the nomination?
Absolutely, and let me tell you why. Democrats have put their money where their mouth is in the past. When Ronald Reagan was in his final year of his presidency, the Democrats were in control of the Senate, and that he made a nomination in that last year, and the Democrats confirmed it. And so we've done it before. We can do it again. It's the right thing to do.
I think that is in part, though, because of who was in the Oval Office at that time. Ronald Reagan was a guy who was respected by both sides equally. I don't know as we're in that kind of time right now, in part because of the leadership we've had. Let me share with you, Brad, something that Chuck Schumer said on one of the weekend shows about the importance of actually making this nomination. I'm going to contrast this with something he said back in 2007. Let's play the first clip here. Here he is over the weekend with George Stephanopoulos.
This kind of obstructionism isn't going to last. And we Democrats didn't do this when we voted 97-0 for Justice Kennedy in the last year of Reagan's term.
After voting down Justice Bork and Justice
Kennedy. Yeah, well, but we had nominations, and that's the point here.
Okay, and yet here he is back in 2007, basically making the point that if any of these justices die while George Bush is still in office, he's going to have a bit of a fit. Here he is.
We should not confirm any Bush nominee to the Supreme Court except in extraordinary circumstances.
So is this kind of one of these situations, Brad, where it's just, whatever particular party happens to be in office, they're going to be following a certain script as opposed to saying, OK, we're going to do what's right for the country here?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why in this election cycle we are seeing so much angst by the American people. Look, Washington doesn't work. And this is a prime example where the Republicans come out and Judge Scalia had just died and basically said, Mr. President, don't send us anybody because we're not going to work on it. I think that's wrong. And that's like in the Old West where they would hang somebody and say, oh, then we'll give them a trial. Look, the Constitution is clear. The president has the right to appoint. Why would he not appoint? That's one of the most important jobs the president has, not only for his legacy, but for the court itself.
See, so I'm encouraged to hear you say that. I think that's a very honest thing to say. And what I'm frustrated by right now is the lack of honesty in this process and the fact that, Leslie, it just seems to always get boiled down to politics and two sides not liking each other.
Yes, especially in an election year. But I think this is where all three of us agree that it is within the president's right and responsibility and obligation to do this for the best interest of the American people. We are talking about extremely huge landmark cases in areas of affirmative action, abortion, going forward campaign finance reform. There are just so many issues that we can't just leave, in my opinion, and I think many Americans would agree, a lower court's ruling. The highest court in the land shouldn't just be symbolic. It should actually be put into action, and we can't have that without a full court. Yes,
all right.
Absolutely.
Leslie and Brian, I'm going to see you guys in a little bit because I have a lot of questions for you about your reaction to the GOP debate, the most epic one in terms of contentiousness that we've seen thus far, I think. Anyway, guys, I'll see you shortly. Coming up, everyone, I want to get analysis right now with our all-star political panel. Back here with me, progressive radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and former George W. Bush advisor Brad Blakeman, along with the Manhattan Institute's Heather McDonald, who joins me here on set right now. Brad, starting with you, he did go after Jeb once again. Jeb Bush cited the fact that why the heck is a guy using an exclamation point instead of his last name being a Bush in this campaign. He again cited how 9/11 happened under his brother's watch. Is this going to have any momentum there amongst the electorate in South Carolina, this anti-Bush rhetoric that Trump is embracing?
No, and actually, I was looking at this as if I was watching a Seinfeld episode. This was a press conference about nothing. How is it possible that he can cry wolf and say he's going to have a press conference? You even heard it from some of the reporters. Why are we here? The fact is that seriously, it's crazy. The fact is he got more earned media by having this event than any commercial would have ever gotten.
Well,
and by
I
the
can
way,
tell
he
you,
would have to pay for it.
He created somewhat of a fuss with some comments he had said, and I can quote this for you recently, where he said the RNC better get its act together because I signed a pledge, but the pledge isn't being honored by them. I signed a pledge and it's not being honored by the RNC. So there was some expectation, you heard me voice it as we went into this, that he might be making some more threats against the RNC. We did not hear that, but he did have plenty of things to say against his fellow candidates. You know, Heather, you and I were talking just as this was unfolding, and you were making the same comment. It's amazing what a master he is at commanding this attention. But it's the kind of thing that, you know, people want to watch it. People are intrigued by it because you never know what he's going to say. Is this going to be refreshing for voters there in South Carolina?
It's great news value, but I think they should really think twice about whether this is a presidential temperament. He's extremely thin-skinned. He vacillates back and forth between going on the attack and then pretending that he's the most magnanimous person in the whole world. I think it's fun to watch, and it's mesmerizing because you're waiting for the next blooper. But I really think that, especially with the Supreme Court nomination coming up, that voters have to think very carefully.
Temperament matters. Leslie, but do voters think about that when they choose a candidate? I mean, you look at a place like New Hampshire, and he repeated an obscenity there to an audience just hours before the polls were to close, and I thought that might have an effect. It didn't. It didn't. People still overwhelmingly voted for him. It kind of feels like no matter what he does, the train has left the station. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
I think watching this, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Democrat, I feel like people tuning in to the political process in America have made us a laughing stock. Thank you, Donald Trump. I feel bad for Republicans, and I think Republicans have an opportunity in South Carolina and beyond. And to Heather's point, this is not presidential material. You can't say, if I don't like what you're going to say, I got my lawyers ready, I'm going to sue you. I don't like what you're going to say, you're a liar. I don't like what you're going to say, I'll insult your mother. There is just no boundary. We are part of an international community. He needs to be able to play nice with others.
Yeah,
he doesn't know what he's talking about
but
with regard to Syria, with regard to Guantanamo. I don't have enough time.
But he's kind of talking common sense, though. You know, he's saying, look, why are we closing this prison? Why are we, you know, helping terrorists by getting out of Iraq, citing, you know, the problems with President Obama's policy of getting out of there. A lot of this makes sense to people. The other thing I'd cite, guys, and maybe we'll have some time coming up to talk some more about this, very interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend that cited the challenges that white middle-class men are now facing. In 1968, 96% of them held a job. Today, 79%. I mean, that's pretty startling. And the other thing that this article cited was that marriage rates had alongside plummeted. 86% of men, white middle-class men, were married in 1968 versus today, which is 52%. So you're seeing this decline in their ability to provide for their families and thus their ability to have a family. And I wonder in some ways if this is exactly what Donald Trump is tapping into, because this is a group, very much his fan base, that feels like they haven't got a real shot right now, that the last 20 years have been really very bad for them, Heather.
Well, the Republican establishment, to be honest, Trish, is getting exactly what it deserves because it has suppressed any discussion of illegal immigration, has told people that they're racist for being concerned about it, and now we're seeing the return of the repressed and the support for Trump. But his issues are often the right ones, but he's the wrong messenger.
We're going to continue following Donald Trump and this press conference out of South Carolina, and we're going to be back with that and the whole gang right after this. I'll see you here.